Professor Groundland here. Let's do a recap on aerobic respiration. We said that the purpose of aerobic respiration is to take ADP plus P and glue them back together again to make ATP. The process of cellular or aerobic respiration starts with glucose and oxygen, ADP and P, and the result is ATP plus carbon dioxide plus water. The process is going to require glycolysis, the citric acid cycle, the electron transport chain, and oxidative phosphorylation. Let's take a look at each one of those in turn. During glycolysis, which happens in the cytoplasm of the cell, we break down one 6-carbon glucose molecule into two 3-carbon pyruvate molecules. This occurs in a series of small chemical reactions, and it actually requires 2 ATPs to get things started. During the series of reactions, we do create 4 ATP, which means that you have a net of 2 ATP made during glycolysis. These ATP are made by substrate-level phosphorylation. The important thing is that we do also take some electrons and transfer them onto our electron carrier, NADH. Electrons have the energy associated with them. We're going to need that energy later for the electron transport chain. So these NADH are carrying electrons, and they're going to bring them to the inner membrane of the mitochondria. The next step is kind of a preparation step. We need to take those 2 pyruvate and we're going to break them down into 2 2-carbon acetyl-CoA molecules. During that process, we actually produce 2 molecules of carbon dioxide, and we take some more of those electrons and we transfer them onto our NAD so that we have NADHs carrying electrons over to that electron transport chain. The next part of the process, the citric acid cycle, occurs inside the mitochondria. Again, we're looking at a series of chemical reactions, and we're going to make 2 more ATP via substrate-level phosphorylation. We're going to make the rest of those carbons down that started in glucose down into carbon dioxide. And look at all the electrons that we actually carry. 6 molecules of NADH and 2 molecules of FADH2 are loaded up with those electrons to carry to the electron transport chain. Here's the really cool part of this process. So all of those electrons that we've been loading onto NADH and FADH2, we're taking over and we're dumping them off in this series of proteins on the inner membrane of the mitochondria. These proteins are called the electron transporters. So we use the energy from those electrons to create an electrochemical gradient across that membrane. Their energy is used to pump hydrogen ions from the matrix of the mitochondria to the intermembranous space. By doing this, we build up a gradient. Now remember that every time we build a gradient, molecules will want to move back to a place of lower concentration. They're going to be able to do this through a molecule called the Atp Synthase. So when those hydrogen ions cross back to the matrix of the mitochondria, as they go through that transporter, that provides the energy for ADP plus P to be glued back together and make ATP. That process is called oxidative phosphorylation. It's where the majority of the ATP made during aerobic respiration occurs. Let's step back for 1 second though and take a look back at those electron transporters. When those electrons are passed from one protein to the other protein in the electron transport chain, at the end of that we end up with electrons. We need to do something with them. They can't just build up there. So what we do is we combine electrons with hydrogen ions plus oxygen to make water. Pretty cool process, huh? Okay, so you've seen how glucose can be broken down into pyruvate and acetyl-CoA, and then via the electron transport and oxidative phosphorylation, we can make it into ATP. What about the proteins and the lipids? Those have calories too, meaning they can be made into ATP. Proteins get broken down into amino acids, and then amino acids, depending on their chemical structure, can be converted into molecules like pyruvate, acetyl-CoA, or some of the intermediates in the citric acid cycle, so that they can also end up in the pathways that make ATP. Similarly, triglycerides you can break down into glycerol, which gets made into pyruvate, and fatty acids, which get chopped up into 2 carbon molecules and made into acetyl-CoA. So monosaccharides, proteins, and lipids can all end up in those metabolic pathways that result in the production of ATP, energy. That's it. Hope you enjoyed.